Well, here we are right in the middle of the process of budgeting up in Salem as they are now in session. And we are delighted to have with us today Colonel David Dotterrer. He has been appointed now kind of the House and the Senate budget coordinator. So Dave, that's quite an assignment for you.
Well, it is, but let me also say it's just for the Republican side. I have not been invited to very many Democratic caucus meetings.
I would imagine that, and I needed to emphasize that you're the coordinator, the Republican coordinator for the House and the Senate budget.
That's correct.
All right. Well, nice to have you with us. How's the experience? How are you liking this job?
I'm loving it. I mean, it's really a lot of fun in a different sort of way. Some people would say it probably isn't fun, but it's actually I do enjoy sitting down and trying to think through where we ought to be going with the budget, what that means, and also taking a look at the more strategic, long-term thinking about where the state needs to go and how you use your resources to get yourself there.
All right.
We're not very good at that, Barry.
You know, the other thing is, prior to that, you've been working with Representative Richardson, who's kind of been the budget hawk, especially during the last session. I'm sure you gained a lot of experience by being alongside Dennis.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And now I'm working just as much with Dennis, but I'm also working a little more with folks like Senator Doug Whitsitt, who, on the Senate Republican side really is the Dennis Richardson of that side. And so there's even more continuity between the two caucuses on how we do this.
Well, things are different. You don't have the joint chairmanship that you had in the last session on the House. The Democrats are clearly in control now, the House and the Senate. How has that affected your ability to get some kind of movement?
Well, it's interesting. What you see is, of course, as part of the process is at the beginning of the legislative session, you have the Joint Committee on Ways and Means, which is your budget committee. And because the Democrats are in charge, the two co-chairs from the House and the Senate are both Democrats. In the last session, you had co-chairs on the House side, and Dennis was one of those. So there was all this talk at the beginning about, that worked out very, very well in this bipartisanship, and we need to do this. So last week, the co-chairs, the Democratic co-chairs, put out their co-chairs budget. And I can assure you, they never spoke with Dennis about it, never asked the Republicans for our input, our opinions on it. And so Dennis and I sat down and said, okay, we have a couple of choices. We can play the loyal opposition and take their budget and look at it and say, this is what, snipe at it, if you will, and critique it and all those kinds of things. Or we can sit down and write our own budget. And that's what we did. We wrote a Republican leadership budget that allows somebody to say, okay, here's the two philosophies, here's the two different views of how you would handle a budget, put them side by side, and you can compare them.
Wow, what a process. Now, you have been able to see the philosophical background between a Democratic proposed budget and a Republican proposed budget. Are you sleeping at night?
Yeah, I am. You have to. The good Lord gives you time to go to bed, and you need to use that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I don't worry about it, and I don't look at it and say, these are two different worldviews of how you view the resources that the people of Oregon send to Salem. I mean, before we get too wonky about the numbers here, we need to recognize that the people of Oregon send a lot of money to Salem and ask their government to do certain things that only government can do, and it's part of holding the fabric of society together. Government plays an important role in that. That's the family and the church, and our Rotary clubs and Kiwanis Club. But there's certain things that the government needs to do,
right,
and only the government can do. So you need to put your money there. Well, that's where the difference of philosophy starts to break down.
All right, so let's take a look at this philosophy. How would you summarize it? I mean, it appears that the Democrats want to spend money we don't have. I mean, that's the appearance, and I'm just wondering philosophically what's behind that.
Well, what if you take a view of government that says that there's lots of things out there that need to be done, whether they're a function of government or not, is irrelevant, but they just need to get done, and they don't seem like they're getting done properly, you can create a list of government responsibilities and things you need to fund that goes on forever. And that's what the Democratic budget essentially does. It just says, look, there's lots of things that need to get done, and so we'll add them all up, and here's where you end up. And guess what? When you add them all up, you don't have enough money. Well, the people of Oregon need to recognize that this idea that there's some kind of a budget cut is absolutely false. We have in this budget $1.7 billion more to spend than we did in the last budget. Wow. That's almost an 11% increase. Now, anybody in their right mind would say, an 11% increase in your budget, I didn't get that 11% increase in my paycheck, so why can't you guys live within your budget? And the answer is, well, because we just keep coming up with lots of things to do that go beyond what we would say, provide for security. Okay, look, police and potholes. All these things that need to be done, those are legitimate things. So those are two different philosophies right there. All right,
so where's the money going to come from? Obviously we got to raise the revenue somehow.
Well, their plan is they put in a tax increase.
Right.
They get to the end of their budget, and they tally up how much they want to spend, and call that what they need to spend. Well, that's not what they need to spend; it's what they want to spend. And guess what? There's not enough money. Right. Even though you got 1.7, even though you got an 11% increase, you need another $275 million in taxes. And of course, they're going to say, well, what we're really doing is closing tax loopholes. But the simple fact of the matter is you're pulling money out of Oregonians' pockets. Now, you may pick on certain Oregonians that you don't maybe like the rich. That's part of the argument. But the simple fact of the matter is you're pulling money out of the economy.
David, so a couple quick questions. Where's PERS in all this? I know it's back on the table, and that's another very sensitive issue. How does that play into the discussion?
Well, here's the issue. When I sat down and worked with Dennis on putting this budget together, one of the great things that I had a freedom of action on was, when looking at this, was the Oregon School Boards Association and the Republicans have put forward a Senate bill that more than doubles the savings in PERS that the governor has recommended. It's a large amount of money. And when you do that, you'd be amazed at how much less money an agency needs, because all of a sudden you've saved them a bunch of money on PERS, and therefore you don't need to increase their budget so much. We increase everybody's budget with a couple exceptions, but we just don't increase it as much.
Mm-hmm.
So PERS is huge, and the Democratic number is, the proposal is that ours would save somewhere between 1.8 and $2 billion in the next budget cycle overall. And theirs is, they're saying 800 million, but Perry, here's the problem. Half of their savings comes from taking an increase that would normally happen in the next budget and kicking it into the 15-17 budget. They're just paying down the road. Yeah. You're going to pay the money, but okay, we won't pay it in the next budget. So we're actually saving money. No, you're not saving money. You're just kicking it into the next budget. That's going to come due.
David, I'm really out of time, but two quick questions. K through 12, yep. Is it going to get funded early, or is it going to get put to the end of the session?
You know what? Your guess is as good as mine, but I can tell you there's a lot of support for doing it.
Okay.
It worked very, very well last time.
All right. Hey, our prayers are with you. Thanks for what you do. Thanks for your volunteer service up there and their appointment to take on that task. And let's get an update again real soon, okay, David?
Okay, we will.
All right, God bless you. Talk to you soon. We'll be right back.